Hey guys and girls, this is Bud, and today I just want to take a few minutes and share with you some things that I'm learning about teaming. And so, first and foremost, if you've not studied the scriptures and seen the scriptural foundation of the need for teaming in the apostolic task, you can check out the self-guided discovery study in the comments below the video. But if you are convinced that, hey, we need to have teams engaging cross-culturally, planting churches, making disciples until there's no place left, something that I'm learning I just want to share with you quickly today. And so a lot of times when we think of building teams, primarily what we're thinking about is this really, really small apostolic team. So it's a team that's laser focused on the task and with like methodology, which is really, really good. But the problem is if we understand movement, we need lots and lots of people doing a little bit in the same direction. And so this apostolic team, let's see if I can write a little AP in there, or an AT. That little apostolic team is very important, but the apostolic team is there to catalyze and mobilize more workers. And so we're just going to start to begin these concentric circles out and think of who and what categories can we mobilize people from. So if we have an apostolic team, then we're looking at, okay, who are the churches that we can mobilize? They're not necessarily going to be the apostolic team. It may be our church, it may be other churches, but what are the churches that we can mobilize? And then outside of that, and so the idea too, let me mention that with church, the church that we're participating with this part of the circle has a clear vision for churches planting churches, not just a church that we're going to mobilize into the harvest. The second, or I guess it would be the third concentric circle, would be discipleship. And again, this may be individuals, churches, ministries, but who can we mobilize to help steward the growth that God has given? And so who is our discipleship team? Who is our church team? Ultimately, we've already defined who is our apostolic team. And then the circle continues to grow outward. Who's our evangelism team? Who can we mobilize from churches and discipleship groups to share the gospel frequently and clearly? And then if we go outside of that, what are the churches, ministries, believers, individuals, nonprofits that we can partner with for outreach? And so outreach could be felt needs ministry, tons of different things. And then this final band, if I can get it on the page, is who can we count on for prayer, research, and resource. Scoot that up just a little bit. There we go. It's on the page. So as we're thinking through building teams, oftentimes we start with the apostolic team and we build outward, which is a great practice. But what do you do when you can't find apostolic partners with the same vision and the same target as you? You've been casting vision, you've been training. The thing I'm learning that's really, really helpful is if you notice this outer circle, this should be your biggest part of your team. And how we're defining team is who can I count on? Who can I count on? So let's just take that and put it in front of each of these. Who can I count on to be praying, right? And again, this is with a target in mind. So let's just say this is Kurds. That's the target. Who can I mobilize to pray fervently for the Kurds? Who can I trust? Who can I count on for good research of ministry among Kurds? And then who can I count on for the resources to see what needs to happen? So that could be financial resources or any other resource. But who can I count on for prayer, research, and resource? That should be your biggest part of your team. And then as we move inward, you're going to find that there's going to be ministries and organizations that have overlap with other people groups, but they may be doing outreach to Kurds. So how can we partner with organizations like World Relief? How can we partner with organizations that are teaching ESL? We don't have to teach ESL, but how can we partner as a strategic, think of it this way, entry into this people to build towards church and apostolic teams from among Kurds? Who can you partner with for outreach, entry, felt needs? Then going in from that, now that we have an entry, who is our team? Who can I count on to share the gospel with Kurds? And again, it may not be that they're laser focused on Kurds. It may be that there's some overlap. Maybe there's a brother who's regularly sharing the gospel with Arabic refugees. But if you work with Arabic refugees, you're more than likely going to bump into some Kurds, especially if they're from Syria, Iraq, or Turkey. You're going to bump into some Kurds. Who can you count on for evangelism? Once God gives you some Kurdish believers, who am I counting on for discipleship? And if you notice, the circle is getting smaller, because if we understand the core task, we know these things need to be simple and reproducible. So again, are they following the 3/3 process? Are they following what we think is biblical and reproducible? And then once those believers have been discipled, okay, we're forming them into church. And then even among the target people group, now we're making an apostolic team of Kurds to do what? To go jump and start new teams. And so really, this is not anything new, but just the concentric circles has helped me so much. But if we just think of the 4 fields with the Father's heart: prayer, resource, research, entry or outreach, gospel or evangelism, discipleship, church, and then leaders or apostolic teams. And so as you're thinking through building teams, I just want to challenge you to think and mobilize people into every single category. Not to the neglect of the apostolic team, but that's the role of the apostolic team, is to raise people up. And here's the beautiful thing. Let me flip it back over. This is what I'm finding. As people start to pray, as people are giving, as people are researching, it's so much easier to say, hey, brother or sister, how about you come with me to this outreach event that's focused on Kurds? And then those who are doing outreach, they're helping with entry. It's like, hey, brother or sister, how about you go with me to share the gospel? Or you're at the outreach event and just say, watch how I share the gospel with these people. And then you coach them up. Hey, would you mind sharing your testimony with this guy? And then those you're sharing the gospel with, what are you going to do? You're going to ask them, hey, you led them to the Lord. Let me train you on how to disciple them properly. And as they're going through the discipleship process, they get to the church lesson, we draw them into the church and say, hey, brother or sister, you just planted a church. And then next thing you know, they have an apostolic mission for another people group. This is good stewardship. And so this has just been so helpful for me. It's absolutely my prayer that it's helpful for you. I'd love to get any feedback you have. Until then, let's keep laboring until there's no place left.